Well, hey, it's good to be with you guys in person and online. My name is Josh Braun, like Ryan said. I'm just glad to be hanging out with you this morning. Hey, 2020 was a great year. Cool. 2020 was the year that my wife and I got engaged. A few months later, we then got married in May of 2020. And then for the next few months, we lived in my Grammy's a spare bedroom in the back of her house. And then a few months after that, we picked up and moved our lives down to Georgia, where we lived in a family's basement apartment that had 2 rooms, your living space and your bedroom. This is what the first year of our marriage looked like. It was a recipe for disaster. I mean, it was an opportunity to build a strong marriage. So we're moving down there and we're finding out stuff about myself and about herself. And for me, I found out something very quickly, and maybe you can relate to this, is that I was a stuffer. That when something happened, particularly something negative happened, I would stuff it down. I wouldn't talk about it. I wouldn't process it. It would be like a jar in my heart. Then when something happened, a conflict happened, it'd be like a deposit and a deposit and a deposit. And with a jar, you know that jar eventually fills up. And that happened every once in a while. It would overflow, and I would get to the point where I've had enough. And this one instance sticks out to me. It's very specific. I'm not sure what built up to it, but there was this one few-week stretch where things were happening, and I'm speaking as if I was a perfect husband 4 months into our marriage, so just keep that in mind. But Des would say things to me, my wife would say things like, hey, can you just pick up the shoes more often? Or can you make your bed? Make our bed. Can you just be home a little bit more? You're out a lot. I would like you to be home. And it would start to pile up and start to pile up. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting frustrated. And you know you've almost hit your point of like, I've had enough of this. When she says, hey, can you rub my back before I go to bed? And I say, I guess so. I guess I can rub your back. Well, it hit this breaking point where we sat down for dinner one night and something was said, and that jar in my heart filled up, and it was at its top, and it overflowed, and I had enough. I was like, Des, why can't you just be nice to me? And she's like, well, if you just clean up, I would be nicer to you. And then I said, well, maybe I'd be nicer to you, and then I'd clean up if you were nicer to me. And it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We fought, and then maybe you've been in this place before. And I was like, I've had enough. I stood up and I walked out the door. It was a power move because there was a backyard that our door was going back to. So I went out into the backyard as if it was making a statement, and we switched perspectives. And Des stands up and she sees me go out the door, and then she peeks out through the window, and she finds me face down in the grass in the backyard, pounding the ground, letting out my anger on the ground. And if you were around, you heard something along the lines of, I can't believe what's going on, it's so stupid. No one was hurt in the making of this. And I also cleared this story with my wife before I shared it with you. But I was so frustrated, and I had hit my breaking point, and I had enough. And that has happened more than one time in my life, and maybe it's happened more than once in your life, and I didn't respond well to that. So my question for you is, how do you react when you've had enough? When you've hit your breaking point, when you hit your boiling point? Or maybe the better question for you is, what do those around you say you react? Or how do they say you react when you've had enough? And this is an important question because usually when we react, it shows us something. How you react reveals the condition of your heart. And the condition of our heart says a lot about our life as a whole. And if we react poorly from time to time, it shows us that, hey, something's going on inside here. It's not right. It's not good. It might not be healthy. On the flip side, we know that if we react appropriately or react well, that maybe something is going on well, and you are tending to your life well. And I think one of the greatest expressions when our hearts are in the right place, when we react appropriately, is when we master the underreaction. When certain things happen to us in our life, And we feel the need to overreact. We feel the need to get heated. We feel the need to get angry and so frustrated. We meet our circumstances where they're at. What's natural is to overreact. But when we underreact, it looks like saying, okay, I see this circumstance. I see this situation. I see how I feel. But I'm not going to reach that level. I'm going to be a little calmer. I'm going to be a little bit more under control. I'm going to have my things in order. And when we underreact, here's what I believe, is that people notice. Is that people, relationships that we have, people around us, they say, that's appealing. I like that. I want to be around someone like that. Someone who underreacts is attractive to me. It has the potential to change the world around us. I think another way to define mastering the underreaction is patience. We've been in this series called What Our World Needs Now, and we've been looking at a few different things that our world might need, but for you might answer that question, what our world needs now. You might say, hey, we need more health care. You might say, we need lower interest rates. We need lower interest rates. You might say, we need cheaper eggs, because that's a problem for all of us. I know we do. We might answer that question in a lot of different ways. What our world needs now is fill in the blank. And that might be, whatever you might answer, might be applicable to some of us. What is applicable to all of us is a list of characteristics that we've been talking about the past few weeks, that within us, if we tend to ourselves, if we tend to our soul, these things grow up out of us. And none of us would argue that our world needs more of these now. This is what the Apostle Paul says in Galatians 5. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, there is no law. I love the ending of this. Against such things, there's no law. He's pretty much saying, so there's not a limit to this. There is nothing to hold us back. There's nothing that says there's too much or at some point this will turn bad. He says if you introduce all of these things into the world, it'll be good. If you do more and more and more of these things, it'll produce good fruit. There's no law, there's no restriction. Week 1, we talked about love. We talked about how everything flows through love. It's like the overarching umbrella of the rest of these. And then we talked about joy and how we can have joy in every circumstance, the good ones and the bad ones. We can have peace that surpasses our understanding, that we can have peace when it doesn't make sense. And today we're talking about forbearance, or maybe the word that we would be more common with in our language is patience. The fruit of the Spirit shows patience in our lives. And there's 2 definitions, there's 2 translations of the word patience in the Bible. The first one is don't give up. So patience means we don't give up, like we can endure. We can outlast the weight or the whatever we're carrying. We continue going forward, we keep moving forward, we keep pressing on with perseverance and endurance. But what Paul is using in this passage, in this way to define forbearance or patience is don't blow up. Like we need to have a long fuse. Like we need to not get angry quickly. We need to not get caught up in the things that would lead us to frustration or lead us to annoyance, and then we explode and we hurt people and we don't handle it well. We overreact. Don't blow up. As I was thinking through, it's like how many, hey, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching yous can you take? How many honey, can you, honey, can you, honey, can yous, can you take? It's how many mamas and dadas and mamas and dadas and mamas and dadas and mamas and dadas can you take before you just had it and you've lost your patience. It's your ability to not blow up when you've had enough. And not only your ability to not blow up, but what do you do when you've had enough? How do you manage yourself? How do you act appropriately in those circumstances? And under that definition of patience, of not blowing up, I think there's a ton of expressions that this looks like. I think this is what patience could look like. It's responding to an offense with understanding. It's reacting to frustration or inconvenience with a sense of humor. It's accepting what you can't control and reacting to disappointment graciously. It's seeking to understand instead of being understood. It's loving someone the way they are because they may never change. It's keeping perspective when you've been disappointed. It's listening to someone's confession without expressing disapproval. It's kindly thanking someone even though they should have done it a long time ago. It's trusting in God's timing even if it's not in line with your own. That patience is expressed in a lot of different ways, and none of us would say any of these things are bad. All of us would say, yeah, I think we need more of this in our world. I think if we had this, the world would be a better place. And what's holding us back? What's stopping us from expressing patience in this way in every single one of our lives? I think part of the reason that we've talked about in the past few weeks is that we can't white knuckle our way to patience. We can't just say, I am gonna be patient this week. If you've ever tried it, it doesn't work because you might be charged up from a church service or somewhere else to be encouraged to be patient. But the moment we leave and we get stopped at a red light, we're like, come on, and it's out the window. It's like we don't even follow through with it more than an hour of time. We lose patience by the time we get out the door. It's like someone that says, hey, I wanna be really humble this week. Right when you say that, it's like you're on the opposite trajectory of being humble. I think just the word to the wise, like watch out for people that just claim outright, I'm really humble. It's hard to do because you can't just choose it. It just happens inside of you when you take care of yourself. And the same is with patience. And we have to look at different ways to cultivate patience in our life so that the fruit is change in our world. We're gonna look at James, the book of James, and I love James's story as we move towards his letter, because James was the leader of the Jerusalem church, which is like the epicenter of the Christian faith in the first century. So like Jesus did a lot of his stuff in Jerusalem and then handed it off to James, who took the lead on a lot of it in Jerusalem. And James has the opportunity, because some of you may know, that James was the blood brother of Jesus, which means he pretty much had instant credibility to say, hey, you follow me as the leader of the church because I am a brother to Jesus. That would be something that like most of us would just pull out to say, hey, I don't need to work for this. I'm just gonna like throw this out there and you're gonna follow me. But instead of doing it like that, instead of approaching it like that, James, in the very first verse of the book of James, he says, I am a servant to God and of my Lord Jesus Christ. He said, don't give me credit because I'm the brother of Jesus. I don't deserve any credit. I am submitting and walking in obedience to Jesus. And that is where I have credit. That is where I'm working to do better at, and hopefully you can follow in my footsteps as I work to follow him as well. And James, if you've ever read it, the book itself talks about a number of characteristics, and I feel like so many times I will go to the book of James for a slap across the face. If I'm ever feeling like, hey, I need to be knocked down a notch, James is like, so this is what all these things actually look like, and maybe you're not doing them as you should. And as we look to James and he knocks out all these characteristics, one of those things is patience, that he addresses, that this is what patience looks like in our lives. And what you can do is you can watch me. You can listen to me, because hopefully you trust that I am walking in obedience and submission to God, and that is what produces this fruit in our lives. It says in James 5, be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. Be patient, not just like get there. He says, we are becoming patient, that it's a lifelong process. And in this process, don't get caught up with until the Lord's coming. And what I mean by that, this is a pet peeve of mine, that when we look around our world, there's an opportunity to say, well, there's a sign here, there's a message here, we're lumping this all together, and this is how long it's gonna be until God comes back, so this is how much patience I need until God comes back. That is not the point of this. He's saying, in the meantime, until the Lord comes back, whenever that is, be patient and become patient. And we know this is a lifelong journey because times in our lives we work towards patience. We're waiting to get something, or we're working to achieve something, and we get that thing. And we've waited and we're like, yes, I was patient. But then something else always pops up, and something else always pops up, and our patience clock restarts. And we're always becoming patient. It's like having a kid, and you have that baby, and that baby's not sleeping well for the first few months. And it's like, I just can't wait until I have a good night's sleep again. I can't wait till that baby makes it through the night. And when that baby does make it through the night, it's like reason for celebration. You feel rested. You can take on the world. It's awesome. It's amazing. And you've achieved that task of patience. But then you get inspired one night. And 9 months later, another baby comes out. And you're like, how did we get here? And the clock restarts. And you're like, I have another 3 months of being patient with my sleep schedule. And for some of us, that happens again and again and again, but that happens with many areas of our life. It's like our clock consistently restarts, and we have to become patient for the rest of our lives. It's a lifelong journey that we're working towards. And in this, James then gives us 3 different places. He says, if you want to be patient, here are 3 different places that you need to be patient, that are required of you to be patient in your life, if you want to see fruit come out of your life. The first one, he kind of talks about in the next verse. He says, see, as the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains, you too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. He said, see how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop. And we're in Van Wert County. It's a farmland. We get this, that no matter how many times or how much control the farmer wants over the rain and over the growth of their crops, that is something that they can't control. That is completely out of their control. They can't fix it. They can't change it. So the farmer waits, but the farmer waits diligently for the crops to grow. That we have to see how the farmer waits, that in these circumstances, that the farmer can't control when and if it rains or when and if it grows. He waits patiently, but he waits on purpose. And for us, in our lives, that there are circumstances in our lives that hit us hard. They hit us out of nowhere. They blindside us, and now we're stuck in something. And no matter how much we try, and no matter how much we put effort into it, we can't change it, we can't control it, we can't fix it, we can't rush through it. We can't just say, see you later, let's move on. It's in our lives, and we're in the middle of it. For you, in your lives, you fill in the blank. You fill in the blank of whatever that circumstance is that maybe you'd like to be out of, but you can't do anything about. Whether that's happening right at this moment, or it's happened in your past, that you see like, yeah, I can't do anything about it. And if I was sitting across the table from you, I would meet you where you're at. I would listen, and I would try to extend grace, and I want to understand the circumstances that you're going through and maybe encourage you a little bit. But in speaking to all of us today, it can be really easy to take the circumstances that are hard, that are unbearable, that are intolerable, and we become unbearable and intolerable because there's no patience in the middle of our circumstances that allow us to see the present as still something we can take advantage of. That when our circumstances feel unbearable, we don't have to be, whatever that is for your story, and that we still have the opportunity to underreact and love people the way that Jesus first loved us, and invite people into that kind of a relationship. We have to have patience in our circumstances, even when they feel like they're at their worst, because we're called to love other people, even when we're at our worst. James goes on, he says, don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. How easy is it for us to grumble against people? Like, oh, I can't believe my boss did this, and this week. Or I can't believe my spouse keeps doing that and that and that. And I can't believe that my kids keep messing up and doing this. And it's like we grumble. when things don't go our way. We grumble and we complain and we get frustrated with the people in our lives, and it's very easy to lose patience with them. And we start to wonder, are they ever gonna grow up? Are they ever gonna make better decisions? Are they ever gonna be wiser in their life? Are they ever gonna move past this stage? And I'm starting to lose my patience, and I'm feeling like I'm losing it with them. Back home, I live in Shelby, Ohio, currently, and I help out with our high school students, and I lead a group of guys and try to help them along with whatever is going on in their life. And this time of year, I always have a rejuvenated energy, because I'm like, here's an opportunity to make wise decisions. Because for a high schooler, not all, but some or many, around prom time, that's where for a lot of students, good decisions go to die. And I have this rejuvenated hope that we're stepping into this, and we're gonna talk about all of the things, and we're gonna make wise decisions, and we're gonna come out of this better than before. And then prom happens, and then 2 weeks after, I hear some stories. I'm like, oh, come on, guys. Like, I start to lose my patience with them. I start to say, we can do better. Like, we've talked about this. Like, you're only hurting yourself, and I just want you to take a step up. And the temptation for me is just to stop caring, and to give up on them, and to not try. But for them, if I gave up on them, or if their other small group leaders gave up on them, that they'd be more alone then than they ever have been before. And they'd probably fall into more poor decisions. And they'd probably fall into more unhealthy habits. And for us, when we're tempted to blow up on someone, when we're tempted to give up on someone, we have to fight the urge and say, their life, their value matters more than my annoyance or my short fuse with them. In fact, when we look at patience and we put that into the realm of the people in our lives, it looks like being slow to speak and quick to listen. It looks like using instructive and constructive words rather than destructive words, showing up for them and trying to build them up. It looks like having a gospel culture over a cancel culture. In cancel culture, I feel like we look at the news or we look at social media and we're like, okay, yeah, we see people get canceled, big names, big people, but that happens in our lives too. That friend, that uncle, the cousin, the sibling, the parent, someone at work that we've had enough of, that maybe we blew up on once upon a time and we haven't spoken to them in 3 months, a year, 5 years. That instead of persevering and sitting with them and extending them grace time and time again, we cancel them out of our lives. But if we look at Jesus' leading, that's never the way that he tells us to go. He always says, no, persevere, have patience with them. It's gonna take a lot of grace, but you and them will always be better because of it. We have to have patience in the lives of the relationships that we have. We have to have patience within every relationship that we have. And to finish out this thought, James finishes, and actually it's embedded within this whole passage. He says, until the Lord's coming, because the Lord's coming is near, and the judge is standing at the door. That he hints at saying this of like, the Lord's coming, he's near, that God is near and he's coming. It's like, why are you talking about this? It's because for some of us, we're not losing patience in our circumstances. For some of us, we're not losing patience with the people in our lives. For some of us, we're losing patience with God. And it feels like we're in God's waiting room and we're waiting on him to give us an answer, and we're sitting there and other people get called before us and they get answers, but we're sitting there for a long time and we just want direction. We want him to answer, and we slowly get discouraged with God and his relationship with us. And where that gets dangerous is when we start turning being patient into being a patient. And we start letting our desires come before God's for us. And we start losing our patience in God. God, give us this. God, tell us this. God, lead us this way. We start to get frustrated and we expect him to just serve us all the time. And I get it. It's difficult. It's hard. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like for some of us, we're waiting on the thing to happen. For some of us, we're waiting to get married. And it's a desire of our heart, and now is a better time than any, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm getting frustrated because it hasn't happened yet. I don't have an answer. For some of us, it's waiting on a family or waiting on kids. And you've been trying to start a family, but it's been a year, it's been 2 years, and you're like, it's just not happening yet. And I just want answers. And it just feels hard to wait. And it feels like I can't wait any longer. For our money, if we're trying to get back on top or we're trying to catch up, but we just can't get out of the hole and it feels like it's suffocating us, we're waiting for an answer for this. Or for your job that you're stuck in, that you hate, that you just can't wait for movement. And it's like, God, when is this answer coming? Where are we going from here? And all of those are difficult and hard circumstances. But it's sometimes in those moments that if we let our patience and our faith walk hand in hand, and we allow God to lead us through some of these circumstances and not even have a clear answer or clear direction, that's when God grows us the most. That's when we learn how to have true obedience and true submission to Jesus and making him the Lord of our life when things feel like it's impossible. It doesn't mean it's always easy, but I feel like it gives hope when we can know that God is closer than we think. So we need to have patience in our circumstances. We have to have patience with the people in our lives, and we have to have patience with God because he's near and he's close and he cares about you and he wants the best for your life, even when sometimes we can't see it. So where do we go? Like, what do we do? If we know if we know where it's required, what do we do in the meantime? What do we do now to produce that patience in our life? And I can tell you that the answer is contrary to what a lot of us want. It's not fast. It's slow. It's moving slowly through life. It's incorporating disciplines into our life and sticking to it and slowly watching that growth happen over time. Most of the time, doing things fast doesn't lead to the results that we want. And I think James gets this, and he says, we need to move slow. He says, see how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and the spring rain. See how the farmer waits. We said this a little bit earlier, but see how the farmer waits. He doesn't just plant and sit. The farmer plants and then gets to work and introduces working diligently instead of working passively. And he adds purpose to our lives. And I think what the farmer would say and what James is saying is that we need to work on the things you can control while you wait on the things you can't control. You need to work on the things you can control while you wait on the things you can't control. And we do this by adding purpose into our lives. That if we sit and we stare at the clock and we just hope for it to go faster and faster, we know that it always goes slower and slower. That in our lives, in the meantime, we add things of purpose into our life. We care about people other than ourselves. We jump into things that matter, that people who need something, people who need some guidance. We walk alongside of people. We engage in things that are purposeful to make our waiting meaningful. And when we add purpose, we're subtracting the discontentment in our life. That we're no longer discontent in the really hard season of life that we're in. We're no longer just waiting for waiting's sake. We're doing something in the meantime. That way, when we get to the end of our circumstance, we can say, yeah, I made something good out of this. And it's not just busy work. It's not just things to distract us, because there's so many ways in this world that we can just turn our brains off and numb ourselves. No, it's adding true purpose to our lives to shrink that discontentment so that patience grows in our life and we can be okay in the uncomfortable. We can be okay in the waiting. He goes on, James says, brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. He says, take example of the people who went before you, because in our lives, it can feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But if we look at people who have been to the end of the tunnel, they show us possibility. They show us hope. I think of the first people who took flight. It's like before they took flight, most people probably would have assumed that's impossible to get off the ground more than a jump. But when they saw an airplane for the first time, they're like, oh, that's possible. And now I believe it's real. And now I believe it can be done. And now there's innovation and there's progress moving forwards in that. And the same thing happens in our story, that it can feel impossible. It can feel like there's nowhere to go until we see that it's been done before. We have to consider the faith, the patient example of others. We have to consider their faith and what they did. He said, look at the prophets, look at the people in the Bible who lived a long time ago. You see Moses, you see Job, you see Elijah, you see Isaiah, that they walked through homelessness and wandering. They walked through prolonged suffering. They walked through the destruction of a nation. They walked through distractions of every kind and idol worship of every kind, but yet they didn't blow up on their people. They didn't blow up on their God. They didn't blow up on their circumstances. They said, no, I'm persevering in this faith and I'm sticking to it. And that is the reason that we still talk about them today, is that they were able to keep this in their lives. For us, we have to look at them, but we also have to be in the lives of people around us. That we have to look at the faith of other people. We have to consider the patience of other people in our lives that are right here, right now, for the circumstances that feel unbearable or impossible. You might have kids running around and you might feel like, oh, I got 5 kids and they're pulling me every different direction and I just can't do it anymore. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I can't do it anymore, until you sit across the table from someone who has grown-up kids and they're out of the house and they say, hey, cherish every moment. Every moment matters, and you'll not regret that you embraced those moments. It's hard, but it's worth it. Or for you, if you're in that season that you're waiting on kids, you feel like there's no hope, you feel like there's nowhere to go, like how can I wait any longer, until you sit and get to know someone who's experienced that in their story. And they waited 2 years. They might have waited 5 years. They might have waited their entire life and desired a family, but that wasn't in the cards. But you can learn from them how to have patience and make life meaningful and purposeful in the meantime. It doesn't resolve things, but it makes it bearable, it makes it tolerable for us in the meantime. Maybe you've walked through a divorce recently, and you feel like your life has been anything but normal since that happened. And you're seeking out some sense of normality and you just can't find it. It's like, I know it's coming, but I can't see it. Until someone else that's been in your shoes is years down the road and they say, you're never gonna forget, but just keep going. Because you'll eventually find that. And you'll eventually get there. It's just gonna take some time, it's gonna take some healing. Is that when we welcome people into our lives that have been through the circumstances that we might be going through as well, they offer a glimpse of hope. They make something that seemed impossible now possible. And we can have patience in the meantime. James finishes out and he says, the Lord is full of compassion and mercy. He wraps this all up, that as we're working towards growing patience in our life, he says, remember God's patience with you. Remember God's patience with you. And that in the times that you were lost, and before you knew me, God's saying, before you knew me, remember when you were lost? Yeah, I was patient with you. And remember the times where you strayed away from me and you made mistakes? Yeah, I'm patient with you. And remember the thing that you asked for forgiveness 1,000 times from me? Remember, I'm patient with you, and I'm beside you, and I'm walking alongside of you. And I don't know about you guys, but when I remember how much God has been patient with me, it allows me to be patient with other people. It reminds me that you're not all high up here. It's that you are with other people, and you need to show them patience because you have been showed patience first. And that solves a lot of the issues when it comes to the people and the circumstances of our life, that God first was patient with us, and he is still patient with you. So we need to have patience. We need to have patience in our circumstances with the people in our lives. We need to have patience with God. And we grow that by considering the faith of others. We grow that by remembering God's patience with us, and we grow that by having purpose in our lives in the meantime. And it leads us to ask the question, when it comes to patience, what do we stand to gain when you lose your patience? Like, what are the consequences? What are the effects? The answer is we don't gain anything. In fact, we probably just lose a whole lot. We lose our relationships. We lose our influence. We lose the power to win people for Jesus, and we inaccurately reflect the heart of Jesus. But what does the world stand to gain if we cultivate patience? What does the world stand to gain if we cultivate patience? It's not nothing. We're not really losing anything. I believe that at the very worst, if we cultivate patience, that our hearts and our lives will reflect the heart of Jesus at its very minimum, at its very worst. And at its best, every relationship in our life gets better. Every relationship, our marriages, our parenting, our friendships, our work relationships, every relationship in our life gets better. And we have the opportunity to win people to the faith. Because true patience is attractive, and it draws people in, and it allows people to see what the gospel is all about. And that's worth it to me, and I hope it's worth it to you. Patience. It's what our world needs now. I'd love to pray for you guys. Father, thank you for this morning. Thank you for the gifts of the Spirit that we get to take part in. Thank you for the patience that you want to and allow us to grow in our lives. And God, I pray that we would do that. I pray that we would invest in ourselves, invest in our relationships with you, that we would nurture the ground that you are growing these things in, God, and that we would follow you and seek to be patient people to change this world for the better. God, we're grateful for you. We love you. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out this morning. Remember to keep patience in the parking lot. Have a good week.